to being to be to being visited. Oh my god. Hello again, Uncle Mike here. Would you like to read a book with me? With Christmas just a week away, I decided to review a Christmas book. The book is called Nate the Christmas Snake. And the author Jimmy Huston gave me 2 versions of the book. How cool is that? Nate is a curious and friendly snake, but no one wants to hang out with him. But when his neighborhood of Candy Cane Lane is threatened, what will he do? Let's find out. Nate the Christmas Snake. Written by Jimmy Huston. Illustrated by Leslie Hodges. Dedicated to my favorite little artists, Georgia and Veronica. And Merry Christmas to all! There's 9 chapters to this book. Let's check out a few of them. Chapter 1. Nate's Rude Awakening. It was cold when Nate woke up in the dark. He hated being cold, and he was hungry. Darn hungry. He should still be asleep. Hibernating, really. But his jaw was vibrating. He was pretty sure that there was something going on up above. Something noisy. Not that he could hear it. He didn't have any ears at all. Ears? It's not easy being a snake. Even without ears, Nate knew vibrations, and this was big. So he stretched his neck so his head could reach out into the narrow tunnel, stuck his tongue out to smell what was going on, then slithered up through the darkness. He could taste the cold air long before he reached the entrance. He hated the cold, but his curiosity pushed him forward. Why was his jaw vibrating? After traveling dozens of inches, he cautiously poked his head through the dead grass and leaves. What he saw was a shock. He thought he knew the neighborhood pretty well, day or night, but this was crazy. What do you think's happening? It was definitely night. He could tell because the sky was black and starry, but it was so bright that it wasn't really dark at all. But more surprising than that, all the light was full of colors. Every color imaginable, coming from thousands of sparkling colored lights, big and small, decorating every house in the neighborhood, and every tree, and every fence, and every shrub. Wow! If he hadn't come up to investigate on his first ever winter visit, Nate would never have learned that he lived in a neighborhood that was known far and wide as Candy Cane Lane. Everyone always came from all over to view the millions and billions of blinking lights and strobing lights and winking lights and flashing sequences of moving lights. And that's not all. There were strange new things on the lawns, like plastic reindeer, giant bells, gift wrap boxes, strands of tinsel, huge candy canes, and a festive silver sleigh. Even the trees had been decorated. It was insane, and it looked like fun. Snakes don't usually have a lot of fun. Snake life is mostly about either hunting or being hunted. So Nate was intrigued by all the happy things he was seeing. And there were a lot more of the 2-legged giants than usual. It's worth mentioning that when your eyeballs are only an inch above the ground, everything looks pretty big to you. And that's just one more reason it's not easy being a snake. Oh, poor Nate. As always, he wondered how everyone knew his name. He remembered the first time it happened. The little girl giant who had lived upstairs had seen him among the petunias in the garden, and he, of course, flicked his forked tongue a few times at her just to be polite. Her shocking vibrations said she was shouting at him directly, but since he didn't have any ears, it was hard to understand her. So he asked a nearby rabbit who was nibbling on some clover near the rose bushes. Rabbits were known for their magnificent ears and their superior listening skills, and that was good, but it didn't quite solve Nate's problem. Rabbits can't talk. They don't bark, or meow, or quack, or cluck, or moo, or even cock-a-doodle-doo. The rabbit heard quite clearly that the little girl giant was yelling, "Snake, snake!" But because the bunny couldn't speak and the snake couldn't hear, their communication was clumsy at best. The only thing the snake could half understand was that the little girl giant seemed to be saying, "Nate, Nate." And that's how he got his name. Huh. Chapter 7. Trouble in Candy Cane Lane. Uh-oh. Those boys look like trouble, don't they? These were different vibrations than all the others. Not happy, but loud and obnoxious. Brap, brap, brap. With crashing sound waves, they spread through the ground and climbed up through the tree and jumped into his gut, where snakes can feel noises and buzzing and thumps. What he saw from the cedar tree made him so sad. More giants were coming, vandals and thugs. Holiday punks were wrecking Christmas displays. They overturned reindeer with disgraceful abandon and tore down the tinsel and destroyed all the toys. It was chaos and havoc as the holiday spirit was ruined by shouting and jeers. It was ugly and mean, and it was coming his way. Christmas was losing, and Candy Cane Lane was in trouble. Oh no. Nate was brave, but he was also afraid, because there were too many villains and he was alone. But because of the blinking bulbs deep in his gut, a bright, bold idea was born. Writhing and wriggling and wrenching, he spun and dropped till he plopped on the ground far below. Bulging with bulbs and shining quite brightly, he sped toward the vandals. "This is my neighborhood," hissed the speedy young adder. Undulating angrily, he rushed at full tilt until he reached the end of his proverbial rope. You know, the end of his electrical cord. He jerked to a stop as the tree bent in half. The line was taut, but Nate was tougher. He pulled and he yanked and he strained all he could, but he couldn't pull loose. He tugged and toiled, and he failed every time, but he wouldn't give up. So he tried some more, and it happened all at once, with a jerk and a snap, as the light string unstrung, slipping and spinning and sliding around the tree, coming free. The light string unwound, and the cedar bent double as Nate slithered toward them, blinking and hissing and dragging a long vine of fiery, bright, blinking bulbs. When he reached the brigands as they stepped in the yard, he puffed up and swelled, and he rose in the air. Oh, the hoodlums were brave as they toppled displays, until they encountered Nate in full snaky splay. What they saw was a holiday nightmare for knaves, a fearsome long snake swirl with big bulges of brightness. A long trail of twinkles reached way back behind him into the branches of the bright cedar tree. Nate wavered and swayed and fainted and taunted. With a non-blinking glare, his serpent mouth flashed open, shooting out bright-colored spotlights like dragonish lasers, sweeping the yard from one goon to the next. And the miscreants froze. Looking one to the other, they sized up their foe. They shuddered and stuttered and stared at the fire in his eyes, unblinking and yellow and blazing to boot, until all of them realized this wasn't their night. Nate thought he yelled, "Stop!" And he did, but he didn't. It came out like "Kss." But that was enough, because finally it came. It was lucky for him that they all knew his name. "Nate!" was the cry that went out through the night. "Nate, Nate!" was the shout that the rogues sang aloud. "Nate, Nate! Nate, Nate! Nate, Nate!" As they fled from the snake. Not together as pals or as cohorts or gangsters, but in separate directions. Spinning and spewing and spitting, they panicked and ran for the hills and the fences. And when it was over, Nate felt like a hero. Without any help, he saved Candy Cane Lane from a Christmas disaster. Not that anyone knew. They were safe in their houses while he fought for their yards. Nate was no longer a wiggling wreath on a gate or a writhing ribbon on a shiny new gift. And he wasn't a candy cane with red and white striping or a glowing garland and a small cedar tree. He proudly proclaimed for the neighbors to hear, "I am Nate, the Christmas snake." Although, admittedly, it sounded like He was happy at last, standing tall and alone, a shining snake sentry, on guard in the yard, blinking, winking, and thinking. What to do now? What to do next? And then it began. What do you think began? Wow, what a great story! What did you think? You know, throughout this book, Nate has a series of adventures on Christmas. From being a snake on a wreath, to twirling around a candy cane, to pretending to be a garden hose, to pretending to be a bow on a present, to be visited by a jolly old fellow who comes around once a year bringing toys to children all around the world. Who do you think that is? This was a really fun book to read, and I want to thank Jimmy Huston for sending it to me. And you can get your own copy by clicking on the link below. There's also an audiobook version of this that you can download at audible.com, amazon.com, and iTunes. There's even a version of this book where you can draw your own pictures in the book. How cool is that? You know, the author Jimmy Huston has done a lot of things in his life. He's been a filmmaker, a screenwriter, a movie director, a race car driver, a professor, a photographer, and he even created his own publishing company, Cosworth Publishing. Do you want to do any of those things when you grow up? Let me know in the comments below. Jimmy also wrote 5 other children's books. The other fun ones include I Hate to Read book, The Dyslexic Handbook, Genius Edition, Cussing for Kids, Etiquette for the Profane, and he also tackles some more serious topics, like the book Why Can't Mommy Spend More Time With Me, as well as Is This Your First Funeral? A Child's Primer. I also want to give a huge shout out to Leslie Hodges. She's the illustrator of this book and also an Argentine dance instructor. Hi, Leslie. Well, all right, that's our show for today. I'll see you all soon. Bye.